Hello everyone and welcome to another little game asset tutorial. Today we are going to make a little metal bucket. Now, this might seem like quite a simple object, but there are quite a few nice techniques we can use to construct this. So let's go over to the software view and we will get started. We are first of all going to set our units, make sure that they are set to centimeters. So we go over to customize unit setup, make sure metric is set to centimeters, and also that your system unit setup is also set to centimeters. Okay, and we're good to go. This means that when we come over here to our standard primitives, go to our cylinder, and we drag out our initial cylinder, we can see it comes in centimeters and will be the right size. So I'm going to choose a radius of 16 centimeters and a height of 30. Height segments of 1, cap segments of 1, and for this project I want sides of 22. Now normally I would want a multiple of 4, but this will actually give me 2 little sides which are perfectly aligned to pull out the little handles. So there we go, I am happy with that. I am going to also take my move tool and make sure this is centered on the 0 axis. I'm just right clicking on those little up down arrows to zero them out, and then I can convert to editable poly. In my polygon mode, I'm going to delete this top face, and I'm going to take the bottom face and just scale it in both the X and Y axis simultaneously, just to give me that bucket shape. Just a slight little scale down there, just to taper it a little. You can see I've got this ribbon along the top. If you don't see that, just click this little white arrow. It may only appear if you're in subdivision mode of an editable poly. Whoops, clicked that too many times there. It can take a little second to open. But once we have this and we're in sub-object mode, it doesn't matter whether it's vertex, edge, whatever. We want to select Swift Loop, and I'm going to add just a few little loops here, just one down near the bottom, and we're going to create a couple of little, we'll create those there. Just one for now will do. And we'll take this new line and we'll just shrink it in a little bit as well, just to create a little bit of a taper, just eyeballing this just ever so slightly in. So now I want to roll around to the sides where I can see I've got a little wide width here over that black line. I don't want to choose these two where the line is the line of the object is in line with the grid line. I want to take this one where it's kind of flat onto it, because these are the ones where I am going to select this little edge at the top and the one opposite. With my move tool, I hold the shift key and I can sort of clone those edges and create a new polygon in between. These are going to be the little handle, the little holes which the handle will sort of sit through, allowing it to pick up the bucket. So polygon mode, pick this. I am going to inset them, and I will just increase the size of that inset ever so slightly, make a smaller hole, just eyeball as I go, no specific size really, but about this size is good. Apply that and hit delete to delete those 2 polygons. So that is a square hole. Let's soften this a little bit. Let's choose Swift Loop again, and let's hold the shift key to go right in the middle, and you can see what's happening here. It will add in a line of geometry wherever I click. But if I hold the shift key, it will go in the middle, and it will also curve it out. It will average out the curve between the 2. We'll do the same on the other side. 1, 2, and 3. And while we've got Swift Loop open, I want to just add in a couple more little Swift Loops just down here through the model. These are just going to be little strengthening ribs that will add a bit of detail, make it look a bit more realistic. Once I've added those in, I can right click just to deactivate Swift Loop mode. With these selected, actually, do you know what? I don't want to add these in right now. I'm going to undo that, because when I shell this, I don't want those ribs on the inside, I just want them on the outside. So just Control-Z, get rid of those. What I will continue to do is soften this edge a little bit more. I'm going to take the top line here and chamfer it just slightly. just a little bit. That's looking a bit of a hard edge there. So just a little bit more, let's say 0.5. Yep, that will do nicely. And just with these two little vertexes, just with our edge constraint on here, I'm just going to move these down a little bit. And this one, move it down a little bit as well. Turn my edge constraint off, and then I can sort of just make slight adjustments to this just to soften it. Just to soften out that whole bit. It's very kind of very polygonal there. So I'm just softening this out before I add my shell modifier and before I add any of these ribs down here. I want to round these out. I did a little test version of this earlier and it broke the entire model when I tried to go back and fix the shell. So I want to do all this first before adding that shell modifier. So we'll do the same on the other side now. Press number 2 on your keyboard to go to edge mode. We'll use that same little chamfer. And again, we're just going to eyeball these. I'm not too worried if they're exactly the same from one side to the next. I'll make sure it's visible just so I can see. I think I just moved these up a little at the start, didn't I? And then the rest of them we are just shifting around to round out this shape a little bit. There we go, that's probably enough. That should be fine. Not 100% equal either side, but it'll do. So now we can add our shell modifier, and the shell modifier will turn this from a sort of hollow, empty polygon cylinder into an actual 3D object. And you can see here how it's added thickness to the whole model. Now, this will probably default at about 1 centimeter, which is a wee bit too thick. So I lowered mine down to, you see, 0.4 centimeters, about 4 millimeters thick. You can probably even go a little bit thinner as well. And now at this point, I will add those Swift loop lines here. But you'll see that we do not have access to our vertex, edge, polygon, etc. I could convert this again to an editable poly, but the issue then being that will hard lock in the shell, and I can't edit it later on if I want. So instead, in my modifier list, I will add an edit poly modifier. And it does exactly the same thing. It gives me back access to my sub-objects, but without collapsing down this shell. So Swift loop now, and I'll just add a couple of wee ribs here. And the reason why I decided actually to wait until now to do this was so that I don't see those here on the inside. Had I done these before the shell modifier, it would just give me those extra polygons on the inside, which I don't really want. I could easily get rid of them, but it pays to sort of think ahead. A little bit out of balance there, so I'll just take this line and making sure my edge constraint is still on, I'll just move this line up. So edge constraint off, this would have sort of warped the shape a bit, as you can see, but with edge constraint on, it'll make sure that this line, as I move it, stays alongside the lines that are there. I'm just going to nudge that gently so it's about the same. Perfect, that'll be lovely. Double click. I'm just going to chamfer these a little bit. Add a little bit of a chamfer there, nice and small. Doesn't need to be too large at all. And with one segment here, we'll make sure it keeps that line in the middle. So I'm going to now double click the middle lines, hold control, double click, hold control, double click. I am going to just scale these out so I can try and eyeball these. If I, just make sure I only select the bottom two axes here, the X and the Y. Why is that not going correct? Have I something else selected here? Let me try this with one. Oh, I still have my edge constraint selected. Let's set this to none again. And there we go. Just make sure I select all three of those. edge constraint is really, really handy, but we only want it whenever it is going to be useful to us. Just a very, very slight little scale out there on those two axes will create these little ribs for us. Now those are quite sharp right now, so let's just chamfer those again. Just a very, very small chamfer. Just eyeball until we get what we want. And that looks pretty good. And we're happy with that, but if I turn off my little wireframe here with F4, we can see we have a little issue just with the smoothing groups. Instead of being like a continuous round shape here, it is giving us a shadow at the bottom. So let's get rid of the smoothing groups and fix that. Easiest way, if we go to our front viewport here, let's select everything, and then with the Alt key selected, let's drag and deselect the bits we don't want. This will be easier than trying to manually select all those little rings of polys. So now with those selected, we'll just scroll down our modifier panel all the way to our smoothing groups near the bottom. You can see that we have 3 smoothing groups being applied here. Let's clear all those and just put a random one on. And if we go back to our model now, those look a lot nicer. We see we don't have that hard edge running down the middle. So I am quite happy with this little bucket so far. You can see that I have made the decision to have these just attached to the metal rather than separate pieces welded on, just for quickness. You could also have modeled those separately and kind of have them welded on, but as I say, just for quickness, we'll keep them in there. One thing I'm just going to do here is, again, fix my smoothing grips. You can see there's a little bit of faceting going on there. I want this to appear all as kind of one smooth surface. Just select around there, clear any smoothing grips, and again, add another random one. That just looks a bit smoother. What else can we do? We may add a little ridge here around the top. So we will swift loop. Just a very, very small, slight ridge. And what I will do is go to polygon mode, click on one, control double click here, and we will extrude. Just ever so slightly. Not in this direction, we'll only set our group to local normal. I'll just extrude out this way. 2.6 is way too big. I literally want just a millimeter or two. Just nudge that, just to give a little bit of a lip there. Again, just to strengthen that top edge. Just turn that off now. And maybe on the bottom here, we've got a very flat surface on the bottom. So let's select this, inset it just ever so slightly. Maybe about that will do. And we will control double click this edge now. And I can hold shift and just pull down an extra little edge. So that's just making the whole model sink beneath the ground a wee bit. That's okay. We will return to top level and just move it up until it is in line with the grid. There we go. So I am pretty happy with that shape. Is there anything else I want to do? Maybe that little ridge is a bit too high there. I might just grab this and pull it down a little. So click, control double click, and then I'm just going to manually move it down ever so slightly. And I think I am happy with that. So let's call the bucket done. All we have to do now is add the handle. So for the handle, we are actually going to use a spline. So I'm going to go to my create panel, go to the second tab here, which is my splines and lines. I'm going to grab a circle, and I'm just going to drag a little circle out on the floor. I will just move this and make sure it's roughly big enough. We can see there it's still very small. Go to my modify panel. I will need to right click and convert this circle to an editable spline. I will scale it up just a little bit, just until it's outside the size of the bucket itself. I will also move it and just 0, 0 it. There we go. That looks about right. If I, with this converted into Elliptical spline, you can see we get access to our vertexes and segments. So I'm going to take this bottom segment here, click it, scroll all the way down to chamfer, and with chamfer selected I can just click and drag. I'm going to chamfer this way up just till before it meets those middle lines, middle vertexes, sorry. And then I'll take the top one and I'm just going to chamfer this a little bit as well, and this will become our handle for the bucket. With that done, I will turn off chamfer mode. I will go to my edge mode and delete this middle edge. And now what I can do is I can grab these little vertexes here and just move them inside the bucket like so. And just be careful what you grab. You'll see those vertexes have little control handles here, so it can be hard to make sure you get the right thing when you are trying to grab. That looks pretty good. What I want to do now is actually change the little curve here that we have and make this more curved. So we should see two little control handles here, two little green dots, and with the shift key held I can actually manipulate those to change that curve. So I'm just going to round this out a bit, select this one, and we may need to play with these a little bit. Just hold shift. And we have another one very, very close in here. It's very small. Let's try and grab that. There we go. Pull this one back the way. A little bit fiddly doing this. Just hold shift to get it exactly where you want. There we go. That will allow us to round that out a bit. And I'll just move it in. Get that nice. This control handle isn't doing anything because it doesn't actually have another point coming out. But this one, bear with me, this is a little bit fiddly. It can get locked in one axis. So what I may do is move this a bit tighter here. Shift and pull out a bit more. Move it a bit closer there. Shift and pull out a bit more. So we want that just to be sort of inside the hole there and kind of looping around in this shape. So we'll do the same on the other side. We'll try and recreate that. And I'll just give myself a little bit more space here. Don't need those other views. Should have done that 20 minutes ago for you guys watching at home. Let's pull this down a good bit and move you up here. Soften this off just a little. I don't really want to touch this long handle because I don't want to adjust this curve too much. Maybe this one I can edit it just a little bit more of a curve. I think that'll do. It's not exactly the same both sides, but I'm not worried. If we wanted to, we could probably mirror this, but I'll just leave it as is for now. We'll come out of there, and what I want to do now is turn this from a single line, just move up closer to the center there, from a single line into an actual rendered 3D object. To do that, just on our rendering tab here, you will see we have enable and renderer, enable and viewport. I will click both of those and you will see that it turns it into a solid object. Now, that's too thick, so we will come down here, radial thickness 1 centimeter. Let's bring that down to about half a centimeter, probably more than enough. That is good. So we've got a solid wire now that will hold this bucket in place. That's about 0.27 centimeters. Just round it up to an even 0.3. It's got 12 sides. It's kind of hard to see. Let me change the color on that. It's got 12 sides. We could probably reduce that down to 8. Nice little low poly asset. We probably even lowered it to 6, but 8 will do for now. And do we need anything else there? No, I'm happy with this. We could come back and change this spline, maybe tighten those curves a wee bit, but I'll leave those as they are for now. What I want to do is actually add an edit poly modifier to this. And then add a little wooden handle here. So I'm just going to take these guys and scale them flat. These guys, scale them flat. And now I will take all 4 and I will extrude them out just to create a little wooden handle. I will set my method to local normal, and there we can see we're getting a nice little wooden handle there. And just like that, if I press F4, now when we extrude those, again our smoothing data gets destroyed. So smoothing group, we'll add this all as one smoothing group. That looks better. And what I want to do is go to my edge mode, press F4, and I just want to add in a few more little segments here just to add a little bit of shape to this. So swift loop, we can go down the side, down the center, but it will give us this kind of effect. That's no good. So I will manually add in my segments where I want them. Go to select all those wee segments and go down to connect here, go to the connect settings box, and we can increase the number of segments that we want. Let's add in 4 segments. Press 1 to go to our vertex mode. We will scale out a lot of these segments. Scale them out closer to the edge, and we'll scale these middle ones out closer to the edge. And I think actually at this point we'll just add another little ring here and another little ring here. And then we can take these 2 rings here and just scale them just in a little bit, just to create that little kind of shape for the handle. Just a little bit of detail there. One of those rings might be a little bit off kilter, but I'm not too worried. That's okay. That's pretty good. So there we go. There is our bucket created. And in video 2, we will unwrap this. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.